organizations, the question isn't if anymore. It's how fast can we move? And what are we moving first? A recent white paper by IDC shows that customers that migrate to AWS can experience 51% reduced cost of operation. First, increasing business agility. Some customers are creating business cases where they believe their workforce can be 30 to 70% more productive and deliver features much faster as a result of migrating their skills and applications to cloud. Agility lets you react to market conditions much more quickly through activities such as expanding into new markets, selling lines of your business, and acquiring available assets that offer a competitive advantage. We see a lot of data center consolidation projects, especially in companies that have been active with acquisitions or that experience infrastructure sprawls over the years. We have seen a lot of data center consolidation projects, especially in companies that have been active with acquisitions or that have experienced infrastructure sprawl over the years. We are also increasingly seeing companies looking to completely reimagine their business using modern technology as a part of their larger digital transformation projects and innovation. And of course, any cost-conscious organization is always looking for ways to improve their bottom line by reducing their cost. Eliminating the need for hardware refresh programs and constant maintenance programs are the key contributors to cost avoidance. We find that customers have no interest in the cost and effort required to execute a big refresh cycle or a data center renewal or refresh. And while there are a lot of other reasons, enterprises are motivated to migrate their legacy systems to the cloud, oftentimes comprising of tens and thousands of servers or dozens of data centers. They are also asking a lot of questions about how can they do it quickly. AWS has millions of active customers every month, and every imaginable vertical business segment in the enterprise is using AWS in a meaningful way. Every organization will have their unique reasons and constraints, but we have seen common drivers that customers consistently apply when migrating to cloud. While we have motivators to migrate to cloud, here we can see some challenges that you might see when working with a migration project. For example, an organization may not have cloud expertise. Also, identifying interdependencies may take some substantial time. From the cost perspective, there are already existing investments. Now, cloud transformation requires upfront expenses. And there are other potential barriers, such as concerns of business downtime during migration. So there's enormous capabilities within the AWS platform, and there's a tremendous space of innovation. That means big changes to an organization. How can customers keep up? How can you ensure that your organizations can manage that rate of change? Based on our experience working with thousands of organizations moving to cloud, we have found that there are a number of common elements for a successful journey. First and foremost, executive sponsorship. Executive sponsorship provides clarity of purpose, aligns business and technical objectives on desired outcomes, because cloud transformation means making or breaking new rules. It also ensures all stakeholders have a seat at the table. A cloud-first strategy reverses the burden of proof for IT projects, from why cloud to why not cloud. This sends a very important message to the organization and sets the stage for you to maximize the benefits from the cloud and devote more of your resources to your core business. Organization change for new and improved operating models, policies, and training opportunities. Starting with an adoption roadmap allows for proper planning, iteration, and updates during the project. A cloud center of excellence provides centralized expertise and guided innovations. There is great benefit to the published guidance and guardrails for how to adopt cloud migrations successfully. And there is even greater benefit with the ability to experiment, allowing for successful definition and implementation of architectures and patterns, measures, and iterations. There may be some cases where customers contemplate large legacy migration in isolation. However, we are finding that migrations are usually a part of a larger enterprise transformation project. The patterns we have seen around migrating to cloud commonly follow a 5-phase approach. Migration preparation and business planning is phase 1. Here, you determine the right objectives and begin to get an idea of the types of benefits you will see. It starts with some foundational experience and developing a preliminary business case for a migration. This requires taking your objectives into account, along with the age and architecture of your existing applications and their constraints. We have partners such as Risk Networks, Data, Cloudomize, TSO Logic, and Apptio that have experience in this area. Phase 2 is portfolio discovery and planning. You need to understand your IT portfolio, the dependencies between applications, and begin to consider what types of migration strategies you will need to employ to meet your business objectives. With the portfolio discovery and migration approach, you are in good position to build a full business case. If you need help with understanding your IT portfolio, you can work with partners such as Risk Networks, Cloudomize, Data, as well as use AWS Application Discovery Service, which will be discussed a bit later in this particular session. Phase 3 and Phase 4 blend together as designing, migrating, and validating application phase. Here, the focus moves from the portfolio level to the individual application level, and you design, migrate, and validate each application. Each application is designed, migrated, and validated according to one of the 6 common application strategies, otherwise known as the 6 R's. Once you have some foundational experience from migrating a few apps and plan in place that the organization can get behind, it's time to accelerate the migration and achieve scale. Partners such as Cloud Endure, Cloud Velox, Data, Racimi, and Attunity can help you here as well, and we can also take advantage of the AWS Server Migration Service and the Database Migration Service. A final 5th phase is operate. As applications are migrated, you iterate on your new foundation, turn off old systems, and constantly iterate towards a modern operating model. Your operating model becomes an evergreen set of people, process, and technology that constantly improves as you migrate more applications. We have partners such as AppDynamics, New Relic, and Dynatrace that can help you continue to iterate on your operating model as you move more to the cloud. Organizations usually begin to think about how they will migrate an application during the phase 2 of the migration process. This is when you determine what is in your environment and the migration strategy for each application. The 6 approaches that we're going to talk about now are the common migration strategies employed and build upon the 5 R's that Gartner outlined in 2011. You should gain a thorough understanding of which migration strategy will be best suited for certain portions of your portfolio. It is also important to consider the fact that while one of these 6 strategies may be the best for migrating certain applications in a given portfolio, another strategy might work better for moving different applications in the same portfolio. Rehost, which is also known as the lift and shift, in a large legacy migration scenario where the organization is looking to quickly implement its migration and scale to meet a business case, we find that majority of the applications are rehosted. Most rehosting can be automated with tools such as the AWS Systems Manager, although you may prefer to do this manually as you learn how to adapt or apply your legacy systems to the cloud. You may also find that applications are easier to re-architect once they are already running in the cloud. This happens partly because your organization will have developed better skills to do so, and partly because the hard part, that is migrating the application data and traffic, has already been accomplished. Replatform, also known as lift, tinker, and shift. This entails making a few cloud optimizations in order to achieve some tangible benefit without changing the core architecture of your application. For example, you may be looking to reduce the amount of time you spend managing database instances by migrating to a managed relational database service, such as the Amazon Relational Database Service, or migrating your application to a fully managed platform like AWS Elastic Beanstalk. Repurchase, that's also known as the drop and shop. This is a decision to move to a different product and likely means your organization is willing to change the existing license model you have been using. For workloads that can be easily upgraded to newer versions, this strategy might allow a feature set upgrade and smoother implementation. Refactor, re-architect. Typically, this is driven by strong business need to add features, scale, or performance that would otherwise be difficult to achieve in an application's existing environment. If your organization is looking to boost agility or improve business continuity by moving to a service-oriented architecture or SOA, this strategy may be worth pursuing, even though it is often the most expensive solution. Retire. Identifying IT assets that are no longer useful can be turned off, will help boost your business case and also direct your attention towards maintaining the resources that are widely used. Retain. You may want to retain your portions of your IT portfolio because there are some applications that you are not ready to migrate and feel more comfortable keeping them on premises. Or you might not be ready to prioritize an application that was recently upgraded and then make changes to it again. So we understand the migration process. Great. The path to cloud adoption is unique for every enterprise. The stages of adoption described here can be a useful way to understand some of the steps involved. A customer's journey to the cloud typically involves these 4 phases. Project. In the project phase, you are running projects to get familiar and experience benefits from the cloud. Foundation. After experiencing the benefits of cloud, you then build a foundation to scale your cloud adoption. This includes creating a landing zone, which is a pre-configured, secure, multi-account AWS environment, Cloud Center of Excellence, or the CCOE, operations model, as well as the assuring security and compliance readiness. Migration. In this stage, you migrate existing applications, including mission-critical applications or entire data centers to the cloud as you scale your adoption across a growing portion of your IT portfolio. Reinvention. Now that your operations are in the cloud, you can focus on reinvention by taking advantage of the flexibility and the capabilities of AWS to transform your business by speeding time to market and increasing the attention on innovation. Let's start with an overview of the Migration Readiness Assessment Overview, or the MRA. In this lesson, we'll describe what is an MRA, what output it produces, and why you should conduct one. The Migration Readiness Assessment MRA is the first activity performed in the Migration Acceleration Program, or MAP methodology. It is used to determine the customer's current state of readiness to migrate. It identifies areas that they already have a strong capabilities in and where further development is required to migrate at scale. Priorities and gaps identified during the assessment help define the scope of the Migration Readiness and Planning phase, or the MRP phase. The MRA is typically a one-day workshop conducted by AWS and or a MAP partner, but can also take multiple days. MRA was built to assist AWS partners, AWS Solutions Architect, and AWS Professional Services Consultants in aligning pre-migration customer engagements. MRA is the first step to a well-planned and executed migration. The MRA helps assess your customer's capabilities, readiness, and commitment to migrate to cloud. The MRA is also based on the AWS Cloud Adoption Framework, which we're going to briefly review next. The AWS Cloud Adoption Framework, or the AWS CAF, helps organizations understand how cloud adoption transforms the way they work and provides a structure to identify and address gaps in skills and processes. It does so by providing guidance around the 6 focus areas known as perspectives. The MRA process evaluates the customer status against these CAF perspectives informs the customer of organizational, technical, and capability gaps that should be addressed prior to migration, and recommends activities to mitigate those gaps. Each CAF perspective identifies a set of stakeholders and the changes necessary to update the staff skill and organizational processes in a specific area of concern. Specifically, the business perspective focuses on changes necessary to optimize business value as the organization moves its operation to the cloud. The stakeholders participating in this perspective include the business managers, finance managers, budget owners, and strategy stakeholders. The people perspective is concerned with effecting the necessary changes to maintain and optimize the organization's workforce and ensure that right competencies are in place at the appropriate time. The stakeholders for this perspective are those that are responsible for people development, training, and communications, such as HR resources, staffing, and people managers. The governance perspective considers the transformations necessary to ensure business governance in the cloud and manage and measure the cloud investments to evaluate the business outcomes. The CIO, program managers, and project managers, enterprise architects, business analysts, and portfolio managers are the typical stakeholders for this perspective. The platform perspective is concerned with what needs to be updated to deliver and optimize cloud solutions and services. Its stakeholders include the CTO, IT managers, and solution architects. The security perspective focuses on the changes necessary to ensure that the architecture deployed in cloud aligns with the organization's security control, reliance, and compliance requirements. This perspective's stakeholders include the Chief Information Security Officer, or the CISO, IT security managers, and IT security analysts. The operations perspective is concerned with the changes necessary to ensure system health and reliability during the move of operations to cloud, and operation using agile ongoing cloud computing best practices. Its key stakeholders are IT operation managers and IT support managers. In general, the business, people, and governance perspectives focus on the business capabilities, and the platform security and operations perspective focus on the technical capabilities. The questions asked in the MRA revolve around these perspectives and are ultimately grouped into 8 categories known as the CAF work streams. AWS provides a questionnaire to drive the questions that should be asked during an MRA. AWS partners, system architects, and the professional service consultants fill in the questionnaire on behalf of their customers. The MRA typically takes about 6 to 8 hours to complete. The questions cover the 6 CAF perspectives and 2 additional categories identified as scope and optional. The scope category allows you to provide descriptions of the goals and types of workloads being considered for migration. The optional category allows you to provide estimates for the number of physical and virtual servers, whether production or non-production, and the amount of storage area network, NAS or network attached storage, and object storage used. This MRA questionnaire is the fundamental artifact used in conducting an assessment and is facilitated by using an MRA assessment. This slide shows an example of the tool. The left-hand navigation panel lists the CAF perspectives, which group the MRA questions. At the top, additional tabs further break down the questions by the CAF subcategories. The MRA assessment web tool can generate reports, charts, and presentations that document and visualize the output of an assessment at a summary or at a detailed level. These include the summary report, the MRP readiness assessment heat map, which shows the status of the MRA task and the deliverables using the red, yellow, green colors. Workstream scores, which provides the detailed scores for each MRA task and deliverable. CAF perspectives radar charts, which displays the completion status of the MRA across each CAF perspective. PowerPoint assessment review presentation, which captures all of the results of the MRA in a slide deck and is typically used for an all-brief meeting at the end of the assessment. We'll take a look at this report in a little more detail at the end of this particular lesson. Now you might wonder, why do an MRA? An MRA allows you to promote consensus among the stakeholders on the current state of the organization and provides a common playbook for improvement. Identifying gaps early in the migration process and making recommendations to fill them helps ensure its success. And MRA enables you to see potential potholes and roadblocks so that they can be addressed early and thereby reduce risk and delays and cost overruns. An MRA can also help in scoping the Migration Readiness Plan, or MRP, by facilitating the selection of what is needed and what is not needed for the migration, and tailoring of the Statement of Work, or SOW. The value doing an MRA increases with the size of the migration effort. An MRA is conducted by AWS or an AWS migration partner and consists of 5 steps. Step 1 is to determine if the customer qualifies for MAP. Generally, a MRA is done in context of a MAP, which requires the customer to meet certain qualifications. Note that MAP is not a requirement to do an MRA, but typically they go together. Step 2 is to schedule the meeting and make sure to require attendance of the key stakeholders. Step 3 is to conduct the MRA with the customer and use the web tool to facilitate that. Step 4 is to analyze the results and create observations and action items. And the final step is to schedule and conduct the outbrief meeting with the customer. To optimize your cloud adoption and migration, you must first assess and evaluate your enterprise for readiness. After you assess the readiness of your organization, you can accelerate your cloud adoption and establish a foundation for migration at scale through the hands of an experience of migrating the first wave of applications in just a few weeks. We will discuss these phases in detail as we move on. MRA, or when to do an MRA. Typically, MRA is the first phase of a cloud migration, and it begins with the cloud readiness assessment of your enterprise's current state. These assessment tasks give you a clear picture of what you will migrate, as well as a business case for migration and the total cost of ownership, or TCO, analysis for a migration. A migration readiness assessment is the process that provides you with the following benefits. It gives you an understanding of how far along your enterprise is in the cloud journey, an understanding of your current strengths and weaknesses in relation to a cloud-ready enterprise, an action plan to close those identified gaps. This assessment is based on the AWS Cloud Adoption Framework, or CAP, and the 6 perspectives that we talked about earlier, which includes business, people, governance, platform, security, and operations. Using this framework during the assessment phase helps you ensure that you have a holistic view of the transformation initiative that will support an effective move to the cloud. The assess phase is a rapid discovery process with high-level TCO assessment in addition to the MRA. These steps will be useful as you progress towards obtaining stakeholder commitment and funding of the larger initiatives that follow. In this demonstration, I want to walk you through the MRA tool. To access this tool, you can go to the mra-proserve.amazonaws.com link. The link for this particular tool is up on your screen. Now, I have logged in using my Amazon employee credentials, but you can log in as a partner as well. And once you've logged in, you can see that it basically starts at the My Favorite Assessments tab. Now, I don't have any assessments that I've marked as favorite, but if I go to the assessments link here, you can see some of the assessments that I have access to, and I can also create an assessment. Let's take a look at this existing example assessment, which is right here. Let me go to this link. And you can see that basically it's an assessment questionnaire, and it's just an example for you to get used to the MRA tool. It is split into 3 parts: the goals, the technicals, and the estimates. And you can see that we can start answering questions here. And on the left-hand side, you will see the different cloud adoption framework perspectives, which includes the scope, business, platform, people, governance, operations, and security. So right now we are on the scopes, and there are a couple of questions here. You can go to the technical section here. Some of the questions on technical, for example, describing the type of workloads that are being considered for migrations and the overall estimates. In the business perspective, we talk about the different IT governance and the cloud objectives, supply chain management, and stuff like that. You can also see that we basically have a rating guide here. So based on the questions that you put forward in with the customer stakeholders, you can give an individual rating. And this tool will use those ratings to spit out a report that you can use to analyze what is the maturity level of the customer in terms of migration. Let me actually show you how to create an assessment. So let's go back to assessments, and I'm going to create an assessment. And based on what customer account you need to create the assessment for example, in this case, there's already an example customer that I have access to. If you need to create a new customer, you can create a new customer in Salesforce first. So let's select this example customer, and I will go ahead and click on next. Now, I need to give an assessment description. We'll call this a demo assessment. For the assessment type, I will select, let's say this is a migration readiness assessment, and I need to give an internal contact. So that could be my name at Amazon. Now with that, I will be using this for demonstration purpose quite obviously. So I'm going to select this option which says this is a demo or test input, and it's not an actual customer data. So we'll select next here. And then I'm going to go ahead and create my assessment. So once the assessment has created, I can start filling in the cloud adoption framework perspective. And notice that around 80 questions for you to walk through with the customer. We define the scope of this MRA, we define what the outcomes are in terms of the technical outcomes. Here is where you're going to think about the enterprise workloads like SAP. Are we considering any Oracle workloads? Are there any workloads that require any specific security consideration? Are there any mainframe workloads that we're going to consider as a part of our migrations? Now, once we are complete with the technical section, we can get into business. And you can notice that here, this is where I need to give ratings based on the response that I get from the customer. For example, is your IT organization run as a federation of groups? So you can give anywhere between 1 to 5. So in this case, let's say choose 5 here. And you can see the rating guide in this particular section. Now, you'll notice that as soon as you select one of the ratings, it saves that into the database. And you need to go through all the different questions that is put forth by this migration readiness assessment. And once you're done with this, you can generate or you can see the output of the so if I go to assessment, you would see that essentially it shows me my existing assessment. So this one is generating a heat map for me. And you can see that currently we have a report. And you can see that some of the sections are pre-MRPs. You can also see the heat map here. And you can take a quick look at some of the areas which are in red, some of the areas which are in blue, which are in pre-migration. Let's take a look at one which is already completed. In fact, let me actually show you one which has much more data for us to have a look at in terms of the assessment, because right now this assessment that we use is still not complete. So we are still not done with that assessment here. So if I go back to assessment, what I want to do is to take a look at this example assessment, and that has some data pre-populated. And you can see that some of the information here is populated, and you can see if I scroll here, the migration funding commitment is pre-MRP. It's a green thing here. And you can see all the legends at the very bottom of the screen. And these legends is basically determined by the ratings here. So we have red, green, yellow to be completed. And you can see in most cases, for example, in this case, the incident response is red because of the rating of 1. However, the cloud security readiness tested assessment is 2, and therefore it's in yellow. So basically, this is a very nice way for you to have an overarching view of what the current status of the customer is in terms of its maturity to migrate workloads. You can also see the heat map here, and this will give you the areas which need immediate attention. For example, the shared responsibility model, whether the customer understands that or not, the security RASI matrix, the security cartography, and stuff like that. You'll also see scores. And this is where you can see that the business case has achieved an overall score of 3.0. The customer migration project plan has achieved a score of 2.5. we have certain skills and a center of excellence, the landing zone, application portfolio discovery and planning, the migration process and experience. So you can see all these different sections and see the individual scores there. The nice little feature about this is this concept of a radar. What does radar allow you to do is to kind of create a view of how things work here. Now, if I go to report, you can actually create snapshots, which is actually a nice feature because you can create a snapshot, and once you create a snapshot, you can basically see a different section in the radar. For example, let's say if I go to radar and I see that, hey, in terms of security, this is reaching this particular stage of 33%. Now, I can go ahead and take a snapshot of this report. So you can go and generate a snapshot. So it's basically a point in time capture of this report. I go back and make some new modifications to the report. And if I come back to radar, you will see that it will show you the difference. So you can compare the difference between the previous report and the current report using this concept of a snapshot and a radar. You can also generate a PPT or a PowerPoint deck. Now, this can be either a summary report or it can be the entire report. So let's say if we go ahead and download the entire PPT. And it gives you a very nice overview of the MRP readiness assessment. And you can see all the information captured as a presentation deck, which you can share with the customer and walk the customer with all the processes that you've captured via the MRA assessment. So this is actually great. Now, you might ask me a question, Manoj, how do I actually get this branding here? Now, this is typically done using an admin access tool. So when you create your assessments as a part of the process, some partners as well as AWS employees have administrator access on this tool, so you can go and define what logos you want to use in your PPT. So this is basically being captured via the admin profile.